Hi everyone, my name is Ivan Connerman. I'm on the ESRI Public Safety team. I want to welcome you all to our ESRI Emergency Management webinar series. Today we're talking about situational awareness solutions. I'm very happy to be joined by my colleague Nikki Golding, and she'll be reviewing some of those solutions later on during the webcast. So I want to cover the agenda, go through the purpose of the webinar series, talk about some of the situational awareness solutions. Nikki will show some of these with some demonstrations. After that, we'll have an update from the ArcGIS emergency management capabilities, and then we'll also talk about some of the updates from our disaster response program. We'll also cover some next steps, and then we'll also talk briefly about the upcoming ESRI Users Conference. So the purpose of this webinar series is to make sure we can provide updates on using ArcGIS to support emergency management as well as disaster response capabilities from our public safety team. These calls go on a pretty regular cadence. They're typically the first Thursday of each month. Our next topic in June will be weather and why it matters. So these topics will vary. Sometimes it could be a broader overview on a subject. Other times it could be a little more of an in-depth coverage of a particular application or a template. We'll also include each month updates from our disaster response program as well as lessons learned from our special event management program. We're also open to ideas and other topics from the community, so if you have ideas, please feel free to let us know. We're always happy to hear those and get that feedback from you. So again, today's topic is getting started with the situational awareness solutions. So what I want to do is quickly take a look at where things have been. I think this is a good example of what we see fairly frequently as a common operational picture. This is an example of a flex viewer. There is a lot of capability on here. There's a lot of data that's available to people. And this has really been that one-size-fits-all approach that has often been what different organizations will utilize. What we're seeing, though, as a trend is towards a lighter, simpler, more focused application. I think particularly when we think about an emergency operations center and the staff that come in, what we really see are people who perhaps don't have time to and the ability to use something on a day-to-day basis. So a focused application, a more mission-specific application that's going to help those people, particularly in a stressful time and a difficult environment, really make the best decision. And I think if we kind of keep that in mind, that these applications should be really tailored to helping people understand a specific environment or make a particular decision, I think that's where we see things going and where really GIS can provide the most benefit. So at this point, what I'd like to do is hand this over to my colleague, Nikki, who can talk about our situational awareness applications.
Thank you, Ivan. So I work as part of a team within ESRI called the Solutions team. And our mission as a team is to build industry-specific solutions that are tailored toward emergency management organizations for all levels of government. The solutions that we create are built in partnership with our customers to really orient them around the business needs that they are charged with answering in response using GIS. The maps and apps that we build are fully configurable solutions. They are fully supported, so just in the way that you would call technical support with a core ArcGIS technology like ArcGIS Server, ArcGIS Online, you can call technical support to help you configure and troubleshoot the solutions that we provide. They're also freely available and included as part of ArcGIS. There's no additional cost to you all. And we bring them forward with each release of ArcGIS. So you won't find yourself in a situation where you've implemented something that we've delivered as part of our solution offering and unable to move it forward to the latest release of ArcGIS. We manage that and bring it forward for you. This is what the composition of our solutions look like to date. We release every couple of months, so I encourage you to take a look at the solution site, solutions.arcgis.com. There's a What's New section that updates you each release with what's been updated or what's new. And we often have webinars and meetups just like this to dive into a deeper level of technical awareness on the solutions that we have, and we announce those as well. All the solutions that we've created are oriented around the various phases of emergency response. The latest addition to our solution is around the mitigation area. You'll see additional solutions rolling towards the UC that will be released to address that and sort of round that solution out. But what we're here today to talk to you about is our situational awareness solutions. And the goal in sort of re-envisioning what situation awareness looks like and the solutions that our team has put together to help your organization is really sort of twofold. Just like Ivan said, we have a classic implementation pattern that's out there today that's really oriented and built like a Swiss Army knife, where it does the implementation can do a lot of different things, but often people are challenged with getting to real focused pieces of information. So that's the first goal. We wanted to build mission-focused applications that were oriented around the incident command system to enable, various sections, if you will, as they're responding to get to the very specific pieces of information they need to make decisions. The other sort of mission or the other goal that we had was to really give the GIS staff the ability to easily configure our applications to easily support decisions as they're rolling through a response. So we have a collection of applications, as I said, really oriented around the incident command system. So as we were developing the solution, we looked at each of the solutions through the lens of each of these individuals in the ICS. We wanted to deliver tools that the incident commander could use to drive decisions. We wanted to provide tools for planning, ops, and logistics to allow them to, again, take a smaller lens or a smaller look at what's going on and provide them specific tools they need to drive decisions as the response unfolds. So what I'll do now is show you what our solutions look like. So as I mentioned, they're a collection of mission-focused applications, and what we use as our common operational picture looks very different from what Ivan just showed, from the previous implementation. So this is still, in concept, a single destination for people to come to access a unified view of what's going on in the response. It's really organized around a harmonized set of data. So each application utilizes the same set of services on the back end. So the ops chief and logistics chief, as they're making decisions, they're all looking at the same status or the same picture of what's actually unfolding. So it's a suite of applications, in total of 7, that are all configurable web application templates within ArcGIS Online. So we take a look at the first one, which is the Incident Analysis Viewer. This is a configuration of our web application builder in concert with a situation awareness widget that we deliver. The Incident Analysis Viewer allows you to come in and sort of size up what's going on as the event unfolds. So the first thing that the widget allows you to do, or that the application allows you to do, is come in and set the incident area. So what's the response area, or what's the boundary of the incident that we're dealing with? So we'll come in and set this as the area of focus. And what we then have the ability to do is then take a look at the various aspects of data that will drive how we engage and how we respond to the incident at hand. The first thing we're looking at is, given, we'll say this is a flooding scenario, this is the flood extent at this point as we understand it. And the first thing we want to understand is, what does the impending weather look like? How much more rain are we going to get? And what could we be dealing with in the next 10 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours as the event unfolds? The second thing that we want to do that's part of our sort of sizing up the scenario is looking at the people that are within our extent, our polygon, the flood area. We can see, based on the demographics, that we have a total population of 500,000 people. But what's of interest here is not the total population. In essence, we're looking at people that might need assistance in the wake, should they need to evacuate. So we have seniors, 65,000 seniors that are 65 years or older. We also have 100,000 children that are under the age of 14, and 150 households without vehicles. So should they need to evacuate, there's no other way for them to do it other than foot. The third piece that we're looking at is who's proactively come in and registered themselves as needing assistance. So we have 10 people that are in this area that have proactively registered themselves as needing help. They have medication required. Should they need help evacuating, we need to be aware of what needs to come with them. There are 7 people that need special medications. 10 of them, all 10 of them actually, need help with transportation, and 3 of them need service animals with them at all times. So as people are going in to help them evacuate, they have a clear picture of what needs to go with the people as they are moving them or helping them evacuate. The next piece of the equation is looking at open and accessible shelters. So we have 26 shelters in this area that are open with a total capacity of 8,600. We have 6,472 beds. So we're sort of beginning to get a full scope of not only the people that are in the area, but also the assets and facilities that we can manage or can send people to. The next piece of the equation is the number of hospitals. We have 12 hospitals in the area which have 4,300 beds available. Depending on the time of day, the number of schools that could be schools being affected could be important. So we have 140 schools that sit within our flood polygon. 84,000 students is the population of kids that attend those schools. Looking at it from the infrastructure perspective, if the infrastructure is somehow compromised, we need to know what the full scope of the number of bridges that we're dealing with, and also if any of them are compromised in any way or roads are closed. So far, we've got a couple of roads that are closed. So the incident analysis viewer gives you a clear picture of the people and the infrastructure and the overall impact to the area in terms of what we're dealing with. Moving through the scenario and looking at it from the operations response perspective, we're using that same incident polygon or flood boundary here that I used earlier. And in this case, the ops folks want to know, just like the other person that was looking at the weather, they're interested in the weather as well. So I'll come in and do the same thing that I did before, set this as an incident area, and then roll through. What's the weather look like? How many mission-ready packages are in this area? And so there's our trained staff with assets that can be rapidly deployed in the field to help us with the response. In this case, we have 4 qualified mission-ready packages that are in the area. The next piece of the equation is the number of facilities. So how many emergency facilities are in the area, what types of resources are there, and how close are they? If we wanted to understand how close they are, or even how to get to them, we can understand that as well. And just like we wanted to understand the number of hospitals as we're looking at and sizing up the incident, in this case, from the ops perspective, we want to know not only where they are, but how to get there. It's the same thing here. We can look at how to get from point A to point B. So if we wanted to look at a particular location that we wanted to actually allocate resources to, in this case it happens to be Kingston Elementary School, we can come in and begin to interactively allocate resources to the area as we understand we need them. So I'm going to take and provide an emergency medical services mission-ready package at the site of this elementary school. So what I need to now do is populate this with information to indicate not only what type of mission-ready package it is, but what's the status of the mission-ready package. We'll say it's acceptance of the mission. The NIMS resource is medical public health. We can go on and continue to provide important information about this mission-ready package. So now that we've allocated an additional resource here to that location, we can then take another look and figure out, okay, how can we get from point A to point B? So if we need to allocate resources, how do we get these folks from where they are to where they need to be? The third application is really oriented around logistics. And the logistics chief is looking at resources, commodities, and things that they can use to allocate as the response unfolds. So the first thing we want to understand in our incident area polygon is, what are the commodities available? But before we can answer that, we need to understand how many people we need to serve. So just like everything else that we've been looking at, the first sort of piece of the equation for them is what's the total number of people, what's the max population we could potentially need to serve. And so using that same demographic information that we have before, we can take, if we need to, and download this information using Microsoft Excel and share that information across and begin to utilize that as a way to share information across. So now that we know the total number of people that could potentially be impacted here, the next thing we want to look at is where is the distribution capacity? So we know we had 500,000 people that we needed to serve. Now we know that at these various points of distribution for the commodities, we have 180,000 bottles of water, 100,000 MREs, 160,000 bags of ice, tarp capacity of 6,600. So we're starting to really get a picture of the number of people we need to serve and how many items or commodities we have that can be provided to the various people should they need it. And then the next thing we want to understand is where are those commodities being staged? So at this point, we have one commodity staging area that's serving the entire incident area that we've been looking at. So the next thing we want to do is begin to understand what's the proximity from the staging area to the goods. So we can take and just use simple, so here's where the staging area is. So we'll do from here and go ahead and get directions. So we can then tell people how to get the commodities from point A to point B. So that's, you know, allocating resources and understanding where those resources are staged and how to get them to where they need to be. The next piece that we want to understand is, oh, I can't get to the arrow, hold on. There we go. Is how are those commodities, what's the trend of utilization for those commodities across those various points of distribution? So we can look at, you know, various, if we hover over this chart, the number of cars or the capacity of the cars that are being served for the various commodities across this area. So this gives us a pretty clear picture of how the commodities are being utilized, how quickly they're being utilized, I should say, and how at the various points of distribution they're being distributed. The fourth piece of the equation is really giving the folks within the EOC the ability to get a clear picture, a very surgical but clear picture of what's going on. So in this case, we can use the configuration of our operations dashboard to look at that same demographic calculation that's sort of been the thread throughout each of the applications that I've shown you. So we have, again, that same total population of 500,000 people. The next piece is how many mission-ready packages in the area are there, and this is the mission-ready package that I actually just added previously. So you can see as the event unfolds and operations are doing their thing and logistics is doing theirs, the same concerted set of services are being utilized, so everybody's got that clear picture of what's going on. So those are the mission-ready package information. The third piece is how are those commodities being utilized. So this is commodities that are available at the various points of distribution. We can see very specific information about capacity for each of those commodities as they're being provided and delivered throughout the community. The fourth piece is shelter occupancy. So again, looking at not only where the open and closed shelters are, but also how close are we to meeting capacity for the cumulative number of shelters in that area. The next piece is giving the public information officer or public a way to gauge sentiment as the response unfolds. So this is a configuration of another web application template that's used to filter social media. Oftentimes in the wake of an event, you know, before you can really understand how big the area, you know, is, the response area or even the extent of the incident, you're looking for ways to define how big it is. Oftentimes the public can be a very quick cursory or preliminary way of gauging that and looking at social media feeds to understand what they're saying. So this application gives you a way to filter the various social media feeds, Flickr and Twitter, and get a feel for what people are saying in the area as things are evolving. The next application is looking at impact summary. So we can look at cumulative information about the demographics, not only in the immediate area that's impacted, but also in the surrounding areas. So we can see that in this particular area, this is the entire city of Virginia Beach here that's outlined. So you can see those demographics for the entire city. We can also look at the demographics for that polygon, the extent that we've been looking at throughout. So it gives us a real clear picture of people that are affected and what the composition of those folks happen to be. And then the last piece here is a briefing tool, and this is an incident briefing. And so it gives a way for folks to interactively brief using the most up-to-date information possible. So again, we're connected back to this same set of services, so it's no longer creating a PowerPoint or ripping off a printed map that's only as current, from the time you hit print. This is actually well connected back to the real-time information that's being collected and created and curated as the event unfolds. So it gives you an interactive briefing tool. So this time we can look at the population impacts, same 97,000 children again in that area, 65,000 seniors. What does the transportation look like? How many roads are closed? What's the status of those road closures? What's the status of the evacuation routes? How many emergency facilities have been activated in response to the flood? That same logistics information. And then the last piece is the emergency shelters. So we've taken the various aspects of all those pieces of information that have been collected and curated throughout the various roles within the EOC, but rolled them up into a briefing to give you a unified look at the overall picture of what's going on as the event unfolds. So that is a very quick look at the situational awareness solutions that our team has created. So from a technical perspective, as I mentioned, our goal was to create the solutions to really address the specific needs of the various roles within the ICS. And what we've done here and what you're looking at is a slide that reflects not only what those applications are, but then the specific configuration of each of them. So for the incident commander, we have the incident briefing tool and the incident status dashboard. For the planning section, we have the incident analysis viewer. For the ops section, we have the operational response. So this sort of connects all of those dots from the person to the app and how the user, the primary user of those particular applications. So now, Ivan, I will turn it back over to you.
Perfect.
So
Thank you, Nikki.
Cover.
So I think that's a great overview from Nikki, and I really appreciate her taking some time today to show us that. I think from a workflow perspective and providing people, again, those very specific mission-focused applications to help them do their jobs and help them with a particular role, I think this is going to be a very, very good path forward. So thank you, Nikki, for doing that. Wanted to give everyone a few updates from the disaster response program side of the house. And just to make sure everyone's aware, we do have a link, and just to cover this, all these slides will be made available after this call, so please don't worry about trying to copy down some of these links. I know some of these have fairly complex URLs associated with them, but all this will be made available right after this webcast. One thing we'll get into is a NOAA story map journal that was just created from the National Weather Service offices in northern Alabama. It's really really kind of a commemorative look at and a reconstruction of what happened in 2011 with the terrible tornado outbreak that happened that day. I also want to make sure people were aware that ESRI is responding to, and we're supporting some of our UN partners as they look at some of the recent events in Ecuador after the earthquakes that have happened there. Again, this is a still unfolding situation. I think this UN map provides a good some of the ways to take this information, do some remote damage assessment, and then make this available to people in an easy to consume way. And one final thing I want to draw people's attention to is the Boston Marathon, which happened very recently. They have done a great job of taking a very simple road closure and parking restriction application, making this available to the public. So again, I think when we consider not just an internal to the EOC usage of technology, but also how do we communicate with the public? How do we make things easy for people to understand which roads are going to be shut down, where they can park, what the time parameters are around these kinds of restrictions? I think this provides a very good example. So one of the things I wanted to cover, and we just talked about it for a second, there was the April 27th, 2011 tornado outbreak that hit Alabama. Again, this is a story map journal that was created by the National Weather Service offices in northern Alabama. And what I think is, I want to start off that this was a tragic day. This was a terrible loss of life, a horrible destruction that occurred across this area, and a lot of people really have suffered deeply because of these events. I think when we all look at something like this that is so complex and it's so involved, and it happened across such a broad geography, and we think, gosh, how can we communicate to other people what has happened and what has gone on and what the impacts are? When I looked at this, and I'll encourage everyone to really, please take some time and go look at this. I think this is a great example of a way to really effectively communicate some of the events leading up to this day. What were the broader weather patterns that came into shaping this day the way it was? And then it gets right into what happened in the morning with the morning squall lines that came through. What about the midday storms that spawned additional tornadoes? And then finally, what culminated in a most tragic afternoon. What did that look like, and how can you provide information to people to take such a seemingly complex and it's very easy to confuse something. Well, did that happen in the morning? Did that happen in the afternoon? How did this unfold? I think this is a great way to put some of this information together, put it into context, and help people really understand. As we look at the upcoming hurricane season that should be kicking off here right at the end of May, I want to draw people's attention into some of our new and updated live feeds. So again, that link at the top of the page about our blogs, that's going to be a great way for you to really stay up to date on what's happening, get some great resources from some of the public safety team across ESRI, and a lot of times we will share information that comes from some of our partners. So I think this is the first one's a great example of this with our USA weather watches and warnings. That has now been added to the ArcGIS Online Living Atlas. So what's great about this is it's an easy way for you to find weather watch and warning information. You don't have to exactly remember where this is. You can add this to your ArcGIS Online organization, and that information will always be there, and it will always be up to date as soon as you turn it on. In addition, another service of information that will become very important for people who are on the coast or have any kind of large body of water nearby are the observations from buoys. So you can add this into your current wind and weather conditions, as well as provide an additional aspect and perhaps gain some situational awareness on what things look like offshore. And the last one I want to mention is that wind probability has been also added to the active hurricanes. So now again, just an additional way for you to take a look at an upcoming event and understand the situation a little bit better. Also want to make people aware that some of the live feeds that we have made available through our ESRI disaster response program and through our technical marketing services, those are being migrated, right? So the transition of those to ArcGIS Online will be complete at the end of this year. So if you are using some of this information, or if you know of colleagues who are using this, I would encourage you to please make sure they're aware that that link you see at that first bullet, that will be retired on December 31st. So the blog post you see at the very bottom in yellow, that provides the links to the location of the new feeds. So again, as you are looking to prepare for hurricane season or perhaps tornado season, or just in general you want to have that rich source of information available to you, please do go through and make sure that you have the most current links and have that information right at your fingertips when you need it. All right, so some next steps. Again, we'd encourage everyone to explore the resources presented in today's webinar. I think, Nikki has done a great job outlining some very valuable ways to think about situational awareness and how you can effectively use those at any kind of an operations center. I also want to make sure people were aware that our next webinar will be on Thursday, June 2nd, and it's going to cover weather and why it matters. So I think with as many weather-related impacts as we all deal with, the number of threats we all face, that's going to be a really, really useful webinar, and I encourage everyone to attend that. Nikki and I both welcome any of your questions, comments, suggestions, ideas. And please feel free to reach us at those email addresses. Also, please follow all of us on Twitter. So GIS Public Safety, at ESRIDRP, and at ArcGIS for EM. Today, we've been tweeting using the hashtag ESRIEM. So please do add that into your repertoire for social media, and please add to the conversation. One thing I also want to mention is, given that we're moving into May, we do have our user conference coming up. This year it will be a little bit earlier than normal. It was going to be in late June. So the National Security and Public Safety Summit will precede that, and that will be June 25th through the 28th. And then our user conference itself will kick off, and these two items overlap just a shade. But our user conference will be June 27th through July 1st. Again, those will both take place in lovely San Diego. What I wanted to do is provide a little bit of information to people about these two items. So our ESRI National Security and Public Safety Summit is really an opportunity to get together with your counterparts across the public safety space. And I know if you're looking at the screenshot, the gentleman here in uniform, we certainly are welcoming the broader public safety and national security community together. So this is not just a defense or an intel focus, but it really is about bringing people together across the defense, intel, law enforcement, fire, emergency management, CAD 911, any kind of security apparatus or security organization. There can be a lot of different speakers there. It's going to provide, I think, a great opportunity for people to really share ideas, see what's been working, and talk to people, and perhaps get some really good ideas on how you can move your own organization forward. So the National Security and Public Safety Summit will dovetail straight into our larger ESRI user conference. And one thing I wanted to make sure that we did announce was for people who have been to our user conference before, we'd love to have you back. If you haven't been, we definitely encourage you to come. Our layout is going to be a little bit different this year. We're going to more of what we're calling a neighborhood layout. And so the public safety and national security neighborhood is going to be, for those of you who are familiar with the San Diego Convention Center, more towards the Marriott, so a little bit on the northwest side of the convention center. We will have our Ops Center Theater right in the middle of our neighborhood, and we will also have some of the more focused kind of kiosks and information, as well as ESRI staff in this neighborhood during the conference. So for people who haven't been to our conference, or for those of you who are returning, one thing I would highly encourage you to do is really think about the challenges your organization faces. I encourage you to come with a list of problems you want to solve. And I'll tell you, my name's Ivan, and I'd encourage everyone to come find me. Give me your list, let me talk to you, and let me help you get pointed in the right direction. If you already got a great relationship with ESRI staff, please talk to folks and say to them, these are the problems you're trying to solve. I think that can really help you get the most out of your experience at user conference. So speaking of getting the most out of your experience, we've got this next slide coming up. One of the things we have are some industry-focused sessions, as well as some technical workshops. So these will go on during the week. You can see we have these really across the public safety space. So we have ArcGIS emergency management. We also have a technical workshop around fire service maps and applications, as well as one for law enforcement. And then we wrap up the week on Thursday with a kind of an overview public safety workshop on supporting special events with ArcGIS Online. I know for a lot of folks, every community seems to have some kind of special event going on. We like to look at a special event as really one of those rarities that seems to happen in the emergency management space where ahead of time something is coming. So I think these workflows, while they're focused on advanced warning special events, they also can work just as well for those no-notice events, whether they're something you want to have happen or not. So encourage everyone to come and check those out. Our public safety demo theater, again, that will be right in the middle. If you remember a couple slides ago, we showed what that neighborhood's going to look like, kind of right in the middle of that theater is going to be that, or right in the middle of that neighborhood rather, is where our public safety demo theater will be. I encourage everyone to look through this schedule. Again, these slides will be available. User conference is it's just an amazing resource, I think, to learn and understand more about GIS, learn more about how to apply GIS to your own particular problem sets that you're wrestling with and the challenges that you've got. These will not be this theater schedule is a one-time only. So each one of these events will be shown once or be covered once, and they won't necessarily be repeated. So I think this kind of speaks to that issue of really understanding what you're trying to get out of user conference and making sure that you can get to the right thing at the right time to really make the most of your time while you're in San Diego. One of the other things I wanted to make sure people were aware of are special interest group meetings. So this is another opportunity, and it's really much more of an interactive and collaborative effort to bring people together and have people just talk about these are the challenges that they're facing. You can kind of see what different people are doing and really get to meet some of your peers in perhaps different parts of the country or even different parts of the world. So you can see we have these special interest group meetings for various kind of user communities, and these are throughout the week. Again, all of this information will be available in these slides, and this will also all be available through our user conference scheduling toolset.
Hey, Ivan.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we jump into questions, I realized that I forgot to show how folks can access our apps. Do you mind if I take a few minutes to walk through that?
I think that's a great idea, Nikki. Please do.
Okay. So each of the apps, let me know. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yeah, I think right now we're seeing your. There you go. Now we're seeing your slide. Now we're seeing your.
Okay. So the apps that I showed you guys are from the solutions.arcgis.com website. And that website is organized, or should be a destination for you all. It's organized by industry. And so when you scroll down through local, state, the third one is emergency management. So everything that I showed you today hangs off of this website under the emergency management category. And our situational awareness suite of applications is filed, if you will, under our response area. And when you come into that response area, you'll see we have a number of different things organized here, but the first of which is situational awareness. So when you click on Learn More there, it walks you through sort of a four-step process. Some of the questions that we've been getting that have been coming in as Ivan and I have been talking is, what about the data? You've shown a set of data which are hydrated in this system already, and what do you do when the stuff hits the fan and you don't have data organized? And if you'll notice in our situational awareness overview, the number one step in this process is organizing your geographic content. So as part of your planning activities, definitely not when you're responding, but as part of your planning activities is to get your collection of authoritative data, whether it be from the city or the county or whatever the geography or jurisdiction you're responding to, laid down as the foundation that you need to really hydrate those applications that I showed you. So that's the first thing I would say to that. The second thing I would say to that is ESRI has a large collection of data. The live feeds is one of them, but we have a number of different data sets that you guys can utilize should you need to augment the authoritative content that you would normally use in your response. So that's step one. The step two is configuring the focused maps. So it's taking and really understanding what does the ops chief or what do the ops folks need in the wake of a response, what does logistics need, and really creating those focused maps that ultimately allow you to deploy those focused applications organized around the ICS. And then the fourth thing is delivering those mission-focused applications. Once you get through those steps, then the situation awareness offering is presented to you, and you can see how to access each of the applications that I showed. They're all fully documented, so if you want to know, let's say, how to access and create the incident analysis viewer, you can go and download the content or the data that we've provided and configure it using our sample data. There's a try it now, so you can exercise the applications just as I did and explaining them to you all, and then we walk you through how to get started. And this same structure for the overview to get started in the workflows is consistent across all of those applications. So I would encourage you all to check it out. It's a very tangible thing. You can exercise our Try It Lives. You can stand them up on your own, with the sample data, and then ultimately our hope is that you'll deploy them in your environment. So sorry to sort of take a tangent there, Ivan, but I realized I forgot to communicate that as part of my presentation. So thanks for taking the detour with me.
Oh no, Nikki, I think that's a great point. And for folks on the line who are asking questions, we're getting a lot of great questions, and so I think if there's something that you're not seeing, or you got a little wondering about something, please do let us know. A couple of the questions we had come in are really interesting because they're revolving around some of the information that could go into some of the tools that Nikki has shown this morning, and also in some of the tools I think that we've shown in the past. One thing I would encourage everyone to think about is, I think the capability that Nikki has shown this morning, as well as some of the tools that we've shown on past webinars, don't wait until it happens and start to implement these, right? That's really, it's going to be a tough situation to be in when you've got all the stress. People have an immediate need to understand what's going on, and they really want to get maps right away. I'd encourage everyone to take the time, what we usually call blue sky, right? When things are fine, to sit down, look at what your organization needs, think about those important decision points, and really start to align some of the capabilities and the solutions that you see here to enhance the people's ability to make decisions and understand the situation. Some of the information that Nikki has shown can come from various sources. One of those can be web EOC boards. So we covered this last month, I believe it was last month in our webcast. That really is just I say just, but it's a fantastic source of information that can come in and really empower you to take these additional capabilities that we've got, but feed them with some of that fantastic information coming out of web EOC. One other thing I wanted to talk about just for a second is field collecting information. So some of the information that you see on here may be really best able to be provided by someone who's standing on the ground someplace. That is I think another way to pull that information out of the field, get that in real time, and show folks what's happening. That is an out-of-the-box capability with ArcGIS Online. It's a very, very simple thing to do to set that up. I think the important thing to do is when you look at your organizational needs and the workflows that you have is to really decide who should be adding information, what kind of information should they be adding, and how can I make the best use of that to enhance situational awareness and decision-making abilities at the EOC. All right, so we've got a few other, go ahead, Nikki.
I was just going to say, I was just going to roll through some of the questions I've got, unless you want to start.
No, I think go ahead, we'll tackle these.
Okay, so one of the questions I got is the situation awareness dashboard a new plugin or software that's been purchased from ESRI, or is it available as part of ArcGIS? And the question is, it is an operations dashboard configuration, which is a web application template within ArcGIS. So it's provided as part of the platform and included with your licensing. So there's no additional plugin required, no additional licensing beyond your regular ESRI licensing that you already have.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Nikki. And we encourage everyone, and in fact, I'm at a conference right now, and what's really interesting for us, with some of my counterparts and I who are here, is as we talk with people about some of the needs they often have a solution already available to them that they may not be aware of. So I think that site that Nikki took us through, solutions.arcgis.com, is a really, really rich and powerful set of resources that I've really encouraged people to spend some time and take a look at. One of the questions that we had also was about special events. And what I would say is, we've got some initial special events capabilities out there right now. I think we've also got some new capabilities coming out from the special events side of the house that'll be heading out later this summer. Is that about right, Nikki?
User conference, right before UC, it'll roll out.
Perfect, perfect. So I think keep an eye out for that. I'm sure we'll be covering that later on this year in one of our webinars. That's going to be a really powerful way to give you a great set of tools, again, focused on the entire kind of life cycle of a special event to make sure that you can manage that properly, ensure you have situational awareness, effectively communicate with decision makers and seniors in the organization, and also ultimately, make sure that the public is aware of what's happening.
Yeah, so I got a similar question with that, Ivan, and so it's asking about if we have applications for music festivals, X Games, or the upcoming presidential inauguration, and that's what you're referring to, Ivan, is the special events applications will be delivered to address those needs and those events, whether it be small scale, 5Ks in your community or things like the presidential inauguration. And City of Chicago actually just used our existing special events methodology, I'll say, for the NFL draft that happened. So the solutions that we'll provide will scale accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to consider, that last comment Nikki just made about the scaling of this. If you go back to one of the bullets we talked about earlier in this webcast related to the Boston Marathon and how they shared information with the public about street closures and parking restrictions, if you think about how many people might be hitting that on a particular day, you could have 500 people hitting something on a day, you could have 500,000 people hitting a particular web map or a source of information. I think that's a really critical thing to look at, and how do you support that and sustain that? One of the great, I think, capabilities and benefits of using ArcGIS Online is that it's a cloud-hosted solution. So our architecture will scale to support a massive influx of users. You don't have to worry about setting this up and ensuring that you have the right architecture to support what could be a small or perhaps a very, very large number of users in a high demand for a very short amount of time. We really take that off of your shoulders, and we enable that out of the box.
So another question I got, Ivan, was if all of the applications that we showed were ArcGIS Online templates, and the answer to that question is yes. So I think, I'd mentioned in going through my presentation that we had two overarching goals in our delivery and composition of the solutions. Actually, there's three, and the third was to deliver solutions that could live completely within the ArcGIS Online ecosystem, so they could scale just like Ivan described, but also give you the flexibility if you want to run them locally, you can do that as well. So our primary deployment pattern, if you will, is within ArcGIS Online, which is why we're utilizing all templates that can live within that ecosystem. The other question I got was if the tools presented from ArcGIS Online available to run in Portal, and we do ensure compatibility with Portal. So if you're using Portal inside your organization instead of Portal in the cloud, you'll have access to the same applications that I just showed.
All right, with that, Nikki, do we have any more outstanding questions we need to address? I think we've covered most of these.
I'm just looking.
Yeah. Again, we really do appreciate everyone entering your questions in the chat window. If you think of something later on, perhaps this afternoon or later on this weekend, please do shoot us an email. We're always happy to get those later on. So one of the questions that just popped up is Ops Dashboard a template? And I'll take initial answer to that, and Nikki, I'd like your input. But I'd say the Operations Dashboard is one of our core applications that works with ArcGIS Online. So it's a great way to pull information in and not only see the map, right? So that spatial representation of what's going on, but also to really call out particular things that you want to see, a summary of a particular field, how many items have reached a certain threshold, and other kinds of critical information in there. When was the most recent item of this type that has shown up on the map? So I think it's a great way to not just see that spatial view, but also to really maintain an awareness around the critical items that you need to make decisions or that may trigger a particular activity to take place. All right. Well, I think we've run through most of the questions here. Nikki, do you have any other kind of final thoughts or comments before we wrap up?
Not at this time.
Okay. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We very much appreciate your attention. Again, we highly encourage you to look at these resources when they come out. And if you found this recording available, please do share that with your friends and colleagues. And if you want to come back and listen to this later on, this will be available on the ESRI website. Thank you guys again. Have a great day.